Arjuna, and for Arjuna, all of us, knowledge which is supposed to make us free from disturbance. So first he describes the specific philosophical application, and today's verse describes the general philosophical principle. This is 2:16. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I don't know if many of you know this verse. I think everybody can repeat. Nasato vidyate bhavo. Nasato vidyate bhavo. Nasato vidyate bhavo. Nasato vidyate bhavo. Na bhavo vidyate sata. Na bhavo vidyate sata. Na bhavo vidyate sata. Na bhavo vidyate sata. Ubhayorapi drishtontas. Ubhayorapi drishtontas. Tvanayostattvadarshivi. Tvanayostattvadarshivi. Somebody else, please.
Nasto vidyate bhavo.
Nasato vidyate bhavo.
Bhavo vidyate sata.
Bhavo vidyate sata.
Ubhayorapi drishtonyantas.
Ubhayorapi drishtontas.
Anyastattvadarshivi.
नासतो विद्यते भावो
Nasato vidyate bhavo.
नाभावो विद्यते सतः
Nabhavo vidyate sata.
तयोरपि दृष्टो अन्तः
Ubhayorapi drishtontas.
तनयोस्तत्त्वदर्शिभिः
Ladies.
नासतो विद्यते भावो
Nasato vidyate bhavo.
नाभावो विद्यते सतः
Nabhavo vidyate sata.
उभयापि दृष्टान्तस्
Ubhayorapi drishtontas.
स्तनहस्ताद्भरर्षिभिः
Tvanayostattvadarshivi.
Nasato vidyate bhavo.
Nasato vidyate bhavo.
Nabhavo vidyate sataha.
Nabhavo vidyate sata.
Ubhayorapi drishtontas.
Ubhayorapi drishtontas.
Tanayostattvadarshivihi.
Na,
ना
never. Asata, of the non-existent. Vidyate, there is. Bhava, endurance. Na, never. Abhava, changing quality. Vidyate, there is. Sata, of the eternal. Ubhayo, of the two. Api, verily. Drishta, observed. Anta, conclusion. To, indeed. Anayo, of them. Tata, of the truth. Darshivi, by the seers. Translation in Prabhu by His English of Prabhupada. Those who are seers of the truth have concluded, anta, conclusion, that of the non-existent, and Srila Prabhupada gives a practical explanation, the material body. Non-existent, the material body. So all these things that are sitting here, according to Srila Prabhupada, they don't exist.
You've got a good imagination.
Well, with age we see that more and more parts of the existing body appear to become more and more non-existent until the whole thing. Okay, so of the non-existent, the material body, there is no endurance. And of the eternal, Prabhupada explains the soul, there is no change. This they have concluded by studying the nature of both. And or in a very simple way, so both Sat and Bhava are similar in their meaning. It's existence or being. The very word to be is coming from the Sanskrit word bhu, to be, bhava, and Sat is a form of it. So of that which, basically using the different forms of the word, it says, of that which does not exist, there cannot be existence. And that which exists, there cannot be non-existence. So two main categories are explained. Let's see Srila Prabhupada's purport. There is no endurance of the changing body. That the body is changing every moment by the actions and reactions of the different cells is admitted by modern medical science. And thus growth and old age are taking place in the body. But the spirit soul exists permanently, remaining the same despite all changes. But the spirit soul exists permanently. So that's who we are, really. Remaining the same despite all changes of the body and the mind. That is the difference between matter and spirit. So what is the difference between matter and spirit?
Body changes at every moment.
One changes all the time, the other is eternal. Yes. By nature, the body is ever-changing and the soul is eternal. This conclusion is established by all classes of seers of the truth, both impersonalists and personalists. In the Vishnu Purana 2.12.38, it is stated that Vishnu and his abodes all have self-illuminated spiritual existence. Jyotim Shri Vishnu Bhuvanani Vishnu. The words existent and non-existent refer only to spirit and matter. That is the version of all seers of truth. This is the beginning of the instruction by the Lord to the living entities who are bewildered by the influence of ignorance. Removal of ignorance involves the re-establishment of the eternal relationship between the worshipper and the worshipable, and the consequent understanding of the difference between the part and parcel living entities and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One can understand the nature of the Supreme by thorough study of oneself. Can you imagine? You can understand Krishna a little bit by studying, or to some extent, his nature by studying yourself. The difference between oneself and the Supreme Being understood as the relationship between the part and the whole. So by studying the part, you understand the whole. In the Vedanta Sutras, as well as in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Supreme has been accepted as the origin of all emanations. Such emanations are experienced by superior and inferior natural sequences. And it is belong to the superior nature, as it will be revealed in the 7th chapter. There is another higher nature, which is Prakriti Vidinaparam, which is Jiva. Although there is no difference between the energy and the energetic. The energetic is accepted as the supreme, and the energy or nature is accepted as the subordinate. So if you have not much energy, it's okay, because we are not the energetic. We are just the subordinate particles. So sometimes he supplies, and sometimes we are in the blackout zone because of some disconnection from our side. Living entities, therefore, are always subordinate to the Supreme Lord, as in the case of the master and the servant, or the teacher and the taught. Such clear knowledge is impossible to understand under the spell of ignorance, and to drive away such ignorance, the Lord teaches the Bhagavad-Gītā for the enlightenment of all living entities for all time, including 2014, January the 5th, 525, or whatever it is. Nasato videte bhavo, nabhavo videte sata, ubhayorapi drishtontastvanayostatvadarshidi. Those who are seers of the truth have concluded that of the non-existent material body there is no endurance, and of the eternal soul there is no change. This they have concluded by studying the nature of both. Yasya prasadakagyopi sadhya sarvagyatam rajet sashi chaitanya deva me bhagavan samprasidatu. May Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu be merciful unto me. By his grace, a complete fool can get all knowledge in 1 second. It's Chaitanya. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta-vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama Good news. In 1993 and 4,
Put the mic closer to the mouth.
there was, in 1993-94, here in Krishna Balaram Mandir, there was a ban on discussing one topic in a class. Do you remember? Because it came to pretty underhanded or even offensive exchanges, some of which were done just from the Vyasa-san. So what was the topic? The topic was the Jiva fall, or the Jiva origin, or do we have an internal relationship with Krishna? And so this was just one of the fallout of that full issue. This was just one of the results. That we couldn't speak about it, discuss it in the class here. The other one was, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur warns in his Bhakti Aloka, that if you argue about these topics, in particular in his chapter on Nishchaya, he mentions how can pure Jiva get into ignorance. That's the fifth point of knowledge about which is supposed to be Nishchaya. One has to be certain. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur says this is a big question, and at the same time this happened before time and outside of material causality. Karma, outside of material karma. Nothing in the world of freedom. So therefore, you cannot give a usual material explanation to this in terms, because we always judge, first there was this, first one did this, and then happened that. So such a sequence cannot exist in the world beyond time, or the world not limited by past and future, and also in a world where there is no cause and effect, which is also the description of spirit in the 13th chapter. And many different answers to this have been proposed, and we can see here in this particular verse this achintya, inexplicable point is being discussed. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur warns that this point, if we argue about the transcendental matters, matters which cannot be settled by material things, so if we argue, if we debate about these transcendental matters, the result is that anarthas grow in the heart. So if we apply material logic and material explanations to the transcendental matters, the anarthas grow in the heart. And we have seen actually that there were some people who were very strongly on one side, or usually more on one side than the other, but on both sides actually, who had trouble in their spiritual life. After such heated debates, both in person, and this was my first exposure to the flame wars in cyberspace, on internet. It got so heated. it was incredible, because that was the first realization that in internet you cannot discuss anything except just sharing some general information. First of all, because you don't hear the intonation and don't see the face, and second of all, you don't speak to the live person, so people allow themselves much more insulting remarks. So therefore you see many companies have a company policy, like when David Rock, who wrote a nice book, Quiet Leadership, Quiet Leaders who guide by not much bossing around, but by hearing and inspiring people. He says that in his company the policy is that one is not allowed to share any anything that can be remotely personally affecting by email. In such cases one is supposed to only fix an appointment for meeting and discussing such things, or at least maybe for a phone call, so at least you hear the other person and you have real-time communication. So that was 20 years ago. Yes. And you can see here Srila Prabhupada and Krishna give a very important ontological point. They say, Krishna says that there are two categories. He describes there are two categories. There is existing, something that exists, and something that does not exist, but is changing and appears to be something, but actually it is not what it appears. So matter. So matter is illusory. It is not illusion. It actually exists. Otherwise we couldn't put our book on the table and there would be many problems otherwise. But our perception of this is illusory. Many places it's compared to. Actually it's one of the, somebody just told me, somebody counted analogies in the Bhagavatam, and this is the most frequent analogy mentioned in the Bhagavatam. Comparing material existence to a dream. And again, it doesn't mean that it does not exist, but our picture of it is false. Just like in our dreams. It doesn't mean that our parents do not exist, or this night I had a dream about my Shiksha Gurus. So they actually exist, but the exact activity or role that they play in our dreams may not be quite real. So this is what Krishna describes here. And this, what he speaks about here, is a consolation. Consolation, everybody knows this word, consolation? It's something that is supposed to make us, to relieve our grief. Anybody knows a better synonym, consolation? To remove our suffering, to remove our sadness. How?
To soothe.
Soothe. Yeah, soothing. Not many people know this word either. All right. So to pacify, to console. There's a famous European philosopher who, in his prison, wrote a book, Consolation of Philosophy. So he writes, how philosophy makes him peaceful despite being in prison. So here Arjuna is in a situation which is actually very unpleasant. So he is in the worst crisis So here he is in the battlefield, in front of in between his relatives, and he has two decisions, and both decisions are terrible. One decision is to fight, and as a result of that decision, his whole family dies. So it's worse than death. Yeah, so many people actually prefer their own death to death. They sacrifice themselves for their family. So it's worse. It's very often that death is preferred to death of. And here, everybody dies in the battle on both sides. So we see that before that, Arjuna saw in front of him his fathers, grandfathers, gurus, uncles, sons, grandsons, and it was very, very difficult. So it's worse than death. Worse than death. The other option was not to fight. And Krishna also told him it is also worse than death. It is also worse than death. So damned if you do, damned if you don't. And so this is the situation. It's a very, very unpleasant. I mean, what can be worse? Whatever you choose, whether you choose this way, it's very super painful, extremely painful. And if you choose the opposite way, it's even more painful. Because if he doesn't fight, then he's no longer Arjuna. He's forsaken his duty. He loses his fame. He is going against Krishna's will, and Duryodhana and others, they laugh at him. Yudhishthira and Pandavas, they depend on him to restore the justice, and so it's worse than death. As one that joke, funny American actor Woody Allen, he says that we are at the crossroads. Either if we can either achieve total desperation and misery, or we can achieve total self-destruction. So we hope that we will get the wisdom to make the right choice. So this is also usually the reason for so many psychological troubles. It's the reason it's one of the symptoms of depression, that you don't see any point in any course of action. All the courses of action seem to be equally profitable and injurious, harmful. And this here, in this case, was a very special mercy of Krishna. So Krishna has arranged this to make it very clear for Arjuna that there is no material solution to material problems. Some time ago, somebody called it Einstein. Was it you who called it Einstein? Who said that problem cannot be solved on the same level it was created in your class some years ago. That material problems cannot be solved by material means. And so in the material duality, just going one side or going the other side is not going to actually resolve the problem. You have to go to a different level. You have to rise to a completely different platform to actually solve the problem. And this whole Bhagavad-Gītā is Krishna's very merciful letter that he gives us to pull us out of that painful situation. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. Whatever you choose, you cry. One way or another. So he begins by saying here, his very first word in his instructions, 2:11, he says, Sri Bhagavana Vacha. Ashochan anashauchastvam. Ashochan, what does it mean? Ashochan. Not worthy of grief, or not worthy of lamentation. So ashochan. So you are lamenting about something that doesn't deserve your lamentation. You are sad about something that you don't need to be sad about. So that's his first word. Don't worry. Don't lament. Don't be sad. And funnily enough, that's according to Bhagavad Devotion, it's one of the ways to analyze the book. You see how it starts and how it ends. What's the last instruction of the Gita, of Krishna in the Gita, if you remember? Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam saranam raja aham tvam sarvapapavyo mokshayishyami ma shuchaha. So the same word. Ma shuchaha, what does it mean? Don't worry. He starts don't worry, he ends don't worry. So this is a crash course on the stress management in our life. On the battlefield, even on the battlefield. And also very beautiful, you can see how perfect Krishna's Gita is. He starts with the letter A and he ends with the letter Ha, Shuchaha, Visarga. And if you check the Sanskrit alphabet, the first letter is A and the last letter is Ha. So this is A to Z of the spiritual life. So you have everything. You have there are 5 levels according to different acharyas, like Vidyavachaspati, for example. 5 levels of instruction in the Bhagavad-Gītā. So we will you can mention the 5 levels. The first level is called Lokika, or mundane morality, or just ordinary dharma. Ordinary dharma. The ordinary dharma is like we have respect your father and mother, which is one of the austerities of the body. Bow down to your seniors, and perform your duty. So everybody is going to agree with that, right? Don't ahimsa is mentioned. Yeah, also everybody agrees that. Even people who don't believe in God become vegetarians on ethical reasoning, on ethical grounds. Yeah? So people understand that that's dharma. It means dharma. And the next level is secret, more secret, and most secret. So you have Srila Prabhupada speaks about them in the 9th chapter, and Krishna mentions them in the 18th chapter. That I have told you more secret knowledge, and I will tell you the most secret knowledge. So there are 3 levels of secret knowledge. And there is Sarva Guhyatamam Bhuya, and there is the most secret of all. So there are 5 levels. Secret, most secret, and most secret of all. So here Krishna, in today's verse, speaks about the secret knowledge. The secret knowledge, which is the good news: you never can die. Nothing can harm us. You cannot be cut by swords, you cannot be killed by guns, burned by fire, drowned by water, dried by wind and thirst. Nothing can harm or destroy you. This is, in fact, just this one single point immediately changes the whole life of a person. It completely changes the perspective. You are not the body. You are not the situation where you are. It's not you. So if you are stuck, this is not who you are. This is just a temporary fluctuation of this material world. Today it seems hopeless, but how many hopeless situations have you gone through? Yes, and now you look back, and it turns out that these hopeless situations, or these very unpleasant situations, have turned out to be blessings in disguise. And you have learned something, or you have moved to something much better. So we are not matter. This is a very great liberating knowledge. We are spirit. And this corresponds also to the level of understanding of Brahman. This is what Krishna explains here, that of the real, there is of what is real, there is no change or death. This is very important. I remember I just, I think last year I was invited to one yoga center. They called the temple in Munich, and they invited us to give Gita overview. So I was doing this Gita overview, and I just read these verses that you cannot be killed, you cannot be drowned, that you are eternal. And one lady came afterwards to me, and she said, it was over a few days, so after 2 days she came, and she said, "You cannot believe how happy and thankful I am." He says, "Because I've been always afraid of death. And when I heard that I cannot die, that nothing can destroy me, it is such a relief. It actually gives me such a hope, such a great, completely different outlook on our existence." So for us, it may seem something simple. You're not the body, you're not the body, you're not the body. You've heard this at least 20,000 times. Yes? Maybe more. And oftentimes it is so often repeated that we don't think about it and don't apply it. But the implication is that in Bhakti this is called surrender. In our school this is called surrender, and this means we cut the false ego attachment or identification with the body, with a role, or with a situation, and accept whatever the situation is or threatens to be, or whatever. And this is called surrender. We accept Krishna, I surrender, I accept whatever you, I'm serving you to the best of my ability, but I accept whatever happens. I'm doing my duty, but I accept whatever you do. And if you just do this, this is a key to completely removing the clouds, if not outside, and at least inside, to make our vision clear. And we know that after we clear the clouds inside, oftentimes we can do things much better outside. This is a great gift, great present by Krishna. This is Brahman realization, one name, another name. You are not your body, you are not this body. And so we have to have a deep understanding of this. Sometimes the Purnachana Maharaj was saying that he was saying this in the Sunday feast lecture, and after the Sunday feast lecture, some guest rose his hand, and he raised his hand and he said, "You are saying I'm not my body, but if I'm not my body, then whose body am I?" We are not body at all. If you need somebody, then okay, we are Krishna's body. But not the gross body. But the gross body is also Krishna's. So, even this simple thing takes people some austerity, association, purification. Many people cannot figure this out. Even this is such a simple and beautiful truth. I remember once I was traveling in a train on Sankirtan, and our neighbor was some lady, so we were talking and describing to her the principle of reincarnation, and she said, "This is not fair." We said, "How is this? Somebody in past life did some bad things, and they just happened to have my soul, and now I have to pay for their sins that they did with my soul, having my soul inside." So, completely. So, even you hear this, sometimes people they are so engrossed in this body consciousness. We are not. We are the soul. And also, as Prabhupada completely clearly writes always, spirit soul, because you can see that many schools and religions, they don't even have the proper concept of the soul. Under soul, they understand just the subtle body, and spirit for them is something different. So therefore Prabhupada makes clear, he writes, spirit soul. We are the spirit soul, Krishna Das. So that's the first level. Second, next level, more secret. So it is secret, and corresponding process for this is karma yoga, which is also very confidential and secret, because outside you look like everybody else. You do your work. Arjuna is fighting, right? Doing very dirty work, killing so many people. But inside, of course, he's doing pure bhakti yoga. But karma yoga will be the same. So outside looks like just work, but inside, on the inside, the person, instead of being entangled, instead of being pulled by the modes, instead of being a sinner who earns more and more bad karma, the person is gaining more and more knowledge and clarity. Same work, same activity. Same family, same children. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, how many children? 12? Srila 5? 13? 14? Yes, so you can see some Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, 0. So independently of the external situation, inside this Bhaktivinoda Thakur, magistrate, so on the inside it's a secret, you cannot judge from outside. So on the inside the person is detached without identifying, consciously surrendering the ego, surrendering the fruits, detaching from the fruits, and therefore same activity acts as a yoga. It's the first step in devotional service, which sometimes even for us takes quite a few years to actually come to grips with, come to practice. We often forget. We just think that if I have Krishna on the altar, and if I have bead bags on my neck, a bead bag and beads on my neck, then it must be bhakti, right? So it must be the top. And you forget to actually surrender the ego and the attachment. So that's why it's secret. And more secret, guhyatara, is not only detaching ourselves from the fruits, but surrendering them to the person and understanding that there is a person who can, Prabhupada says, relationship with the teacher and taught. He can teach us from the heart, and then he can come to us as a spiritual master. He can send us a very nice letter, like Bhagavad-Gītā, or this book. This room is full of Krishna's letters to us, yeah? The loving letters. So if somebody claims they love Krishna, and they do devotional service, but they do not care to open Krishna's letter to them, and there may be a doubt in the depths of their love for Krishna. If you love somebody and they write you a letter, yeah, how many times will you read it? You will read every word, every single character in the. You will say, oh, is this? Oh, she says you, and he writes very, not just but very, and yeah, you will relish every word. So Krishna never forgets us. He sends us these letters. So this is more confidential knowledge, understanding the Lord and engaging in surrender, in focusing our mind on Krishna. And most confidential is bhakti. This is most confidential. So this is a miracle of miracles, secret of secrets, which allows one to connect with Krishna not after many years of practice, but immediately, as soon as you grasp this greatest secret of bhakti, do things with Krishna. And the most secret of all, they say, is bhakti with a certain relationship with Krishna. When you understand that there are 5 rasas, which Prabhupada writes right in the introduction, and then you accept Krishna not just as some generic big Lord, super soul, but as your friend, as your master, as your lover, as your dear child, so in a specific rasa. These are the 5 levels of the Gita mentioned here. But Krishna begins here, his letter A is don't worry. And why don't worry? You are not the body, neither the gross nor the subtle. Yes. And first verse, second verse, also you are always a person. You cannot lose your real individuality, your real personality. You cannot stop being yourself. And the third verse, that only the body changes. And 14th, his next instruction, Matras Vashasta Kaunteya Shishtoshna Sukadukada Agama Payananajas Tam Stitikshasa Bharata. He's saying, heat and cold come and go, as we can experience now, very acutely. It's sometimes you sit in a room and you cannot believe, how is it possible that this same room that is so cold now, in the summer was so hot? And in the summer you think the opposite. You think, how is it possible? This super hot room in winter was so cold. I was complaining about cold. Now I could definitely use some of that. Krishna says the same way, all the waves in the mind, they are like seasons. And they come and go, and therefore he gives his first instruction, titikshasa, tolerate. Titikshasa, tolerate. So learn to tolerate. So this is about the samadhi. And if you can learn to do this, if you learn not to be swayed, samadukha sukhandiram somridatvaya labhate, kalpate, somridatvaya kalpate. For the first time he mentions transcendence, amritatva, which is beyond birth and death and which is nectar. Just from this first few verses. And today's verse, he gives the philosophical explanation that all the learned souls, having studied the two, matter and spirit, real and illusory, have concluded that illusory does not really exist, and whatever is changeable, whatever is temporary, is illusory. And what is real cannot be destroyed. And who cares for what is not real? Do you want something unreal? You want something real. This is what Krishna explains. So if we are pained by something, then it probably is something unreal, something temporary. And it's best to surrender the attachment and devote ourselves to cultivating the real, our relationship with the best friend of friends, our Shri Radha Krishna, Shri Krishna Balaram, Shri Golitai, in a proper consciousness, offering them our holy names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So was this lecture real or not real? It ends. But with the special support from Bhagavad Mataji, it never ends. It goes on every day, year in, year out. So somewhere, always Bhagavad-Gītā is relished. Any comments, questions, remarks, points, doubts, endorsements?
Thank you. I like the analogy that you gave of Krishna's letters to us. I never heard it expressed quite like that, but this is very nice. If you as you expressed, if someone very dear writes you a letter, you read that letter over and over and over again. And because you have such a deep relationship with that person. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
That was very nice.
Thank you very much. That was...
The rest of it was good too. But this was very striking, unusual.
Siddhantaji had this one complaint. He said that it's in his 12th chapter of Bhakti-siddhanta Vaibhava, striking book describing his life and teachings. His chapter on Bhakti-siddhantaji and studying the Shastra. So he said there that the culture of Kirtan is common in Bengal. For 5,500 years, everybody is singing the holy names. However, he says the problem is they don't study the Bhagavatam and Bhagavad-Gītā and Shastra, and this is why their chanting doesn't bring the desired fruit of purity and love of Godhead. So he said, he gives a beautiful and really striking analogy. He says that chanting, just like Krishna, is never really alone, and he's always accompanied by his Sarupa Shakti Srimati Radhika. In the same way, chanting is Krishna, but studying the Bhagavad-Gītā, Bhagavatam, is Sarupa Shakti of chanting, of Kirtan. So this is like Radhika to the Krishna of Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So it's also very strong. And Vaishnava Tantra Sara says that wherever Gita is studied, there very mercifully and happily, definitely are present satisfied Radha and Krishna. So you shouldn't think that, oh, this is battlefield or something. Radha and Krishna are happily and mercifully present.
How do you develop the relation with Krishna?
How do you develop a relationship with Krishna?
How can you decide on the relationship with Krishna?
You can see Srila Prabhupada here writes that this is the eternal relationship, and at any rate, you can see there are two schools to this. Some people say that you should come to our shop and buy it from us, this relationship. Take initiation from me and we will give you your relationship. So this is one approach to this question, which Srila Prabhupada doesn't appear to share. And you can see that Srila Prabhupada also in Jayavadharma Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that there are two approaches to this. And he says that one was given to by Chaitanya Gotava Kreshwar Pandit, Gopal Guru Goswami, and Chandra Goswami, where it is told to you, your relationship with Krishna is like this. Prabhupada doesn't endorse this approach because Bhaktivinoda Thakur himself there says that the other path was given to Raghunath Das Goswami, where through the chanting of the holy name, as one becomes purified and at the same time relishes the Goswamis, the Bhagavatam, the Goswamis' literature, then with purification it becomes more and more clear, and at one point we are becoming drawn to a certain lila or to a certain relationship with Krishna. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that this path of revelation is more natural, quicker and easier.
Dasa you can understand. You are always in the dasa. But above that, nothing.
Well, Prabhupada said that's enough. Who is not dasa? Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Prabhupada Saraswati says that if you have fully realized your dasa of Gauranga, then by his mercy, you are by diving into his lila, you are emerging in Radha Krishna lila, and it is revealed to you your eternal relationship with Radha Krishna.
Krishna says that as one surrenders to me, I will reward them accordingly. So depending on how surrendered you are and sincere you are in your service to Krishna, that knowledge will be revealed to you through your heart. So it's up to us.
Fact is, again, yesterday we were all discussing impatient. when you are impatient,
Yes.
you want to get something revelation to you quickly.
Yeah, this is a tricky point. On one side, it is advertised that the only prize is greed. On the other side, you see that greed is one of the things that can destroy bhakti. And you have seen people who are too greedy. They, after some time, you can see they drop their bhakti altogether. And patience is extolled, dhairya, in Upadeshamrita also, as one of the attitudes that help one advance quickly. And in Bhakti-loka, again, Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes a mysterious conclusion to that quality. He says that patience is very important, and he says, as soon as Krishna sees that you are patient, he immediately gives you mercy, which is quite paradoxical. So as soon as you surrender to wait whatever it takes, I will not give up, I will continue whatever, no matter how long it takes, then Krishna immediately decides, this is correct, and gives you the mercy immediately. Just like in Gauranga Lila, Mukunda Das was not allowed to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was asked, Gauranga, showing his divine powers, was asked, so when can he see? Please ask Gauranga, when will I be able to see him? And Gauranga Mahaprabhu said, maybe after 10 million lifetimes. And Mukunda Das heard this and started dancing. I will see! I will see! He didn't mind 10 million lifetimes. He was just happy to know that he will see. And Gauranga Mahaprabhu heard it. And what did he say? Bring him now. He agreed to wait, and then this 10 million lifetimes were reduced to 1 second. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you very much. My humble obeisances. Mancha.